Okay, so right now the login, the profile, the register pages are pretty trivial. There's nothing in them. So let's make it a little more interesting, and let's actually add some forms into the login page, right, and the register pages and whatnot. For instance, what we'd like to be able to do is that if we log in, right, we'd like to look at the username and password. If it's equal to whatever we expected, then navigate to the profile, not blindly like we can right now. Yes? So let's add the form module because it's not loaded originally. And in the login, declare two input fields like this, username and password. Yes, with a button. And then let's bind the form elements, right, to a username variable and a password variable, right? So that they're bound now to class variables username and password in the login component, right? In the login component, we are declaring the username and password as strings. The type definition is optional, right? But is suggested. So we're declaring username and password as strings using the colon there inside of the class, and we're also declaring in the click button in the login button. We're binding it to the login button here. So if we click on it right now, it just alerts and displays the username. So if we type username Alice and say login, it just says hello Alice. Okay. All right. So what we'd like to be able to do, is that we want to be able to navigate to a page. For instance, if we log in, we would like to programmatically navigate to the profile, right? If the username and password match. So first, let's take a look at how would we actually navigate, right? So to programmatically navigate, right? Right now we can only navigate by clicking the hyperlinks. Now we want to navigate when you click on a button, right? And we run some logic, and then we decide to navigate or not, right? So the way we could do that is in the login, we can use the router service. It's a service. We'll see what a service is in a minute. A service is basically an instance that is maintained by the framework, and then we can just ask it by inversion of control to be injected into our scope. Very much like you can in JPA, you can ask add autowired, right, and magically you get an instance of whatever you ask for and to be autowired. So same thing here. We can ask whatever we want to be injected by defining it in the constructor router, and an instance of that router will be injected. Right. So now we have the router as a local variable, and now it's a private local variable, and then we can reference it using this.router. See that right? See right there? And so now the router has a function called navigate, and navigate allows us to reference any path that were declared in our routes. Remember our routes? There we had declared 3 routes, right? One for login, one for register, and one for profile, right? And I forget what the path of the profile was, but presumably it started with user, hopefully, okay? And here we're notice that the syntax is that it's an array, and we can break up. The array allows us to build the path programmatically, and it will concatenate it. All the strings in the array will be concatenated into one big URL. Here I'm just building the string right away instead of just a plain old string. So the path is /user/123. Presumably 123 will be the ID of the user who's logging in. Presumably we went out to a server. We've verified that this username and password's ID is 123, and now we want to navigate to somebody's profile, presumably. So we're navigating there, and presumably the profile navigation would be mapped to /user/ and the ID of some user, presumably. So let's take a look at implementing a service. A service